out of the grass. Hello, ladies. How very interesting. I was only tracking one, and would you look at that? That's definitely more than one. Hello, girls. And the perfect thing about that, and the reason that I'm doing this happy dance, is we're on the boundary. So 2 seconds later, there's a chance they might have got up and gone across onto Arathusa Simbombili. It's really very much touch and go. And what that means for our new viewers is essentially there are certain places we can drive and certain places we can't. And Simbombili we cannot drive on, which is here. Arathusa we can, which is here. And this is Djuma, which obviously is our home. And so we have arrived at the perfect time. Hello, little ones. Who have we got here? Hello. A series... Oh, you're looking so much cleaner than when I last saw you. So much cleaner. Look at you. Here we go. Oh, look at all these faces staring up at us. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Nkuhuma cubs. And 2 lionesses. And presumably, actually, the third that I was tracking is somewhere not too far away from here. She must be on her way back to rejoin this group. Unless it's one of the adult females that are over here. I'm not sure. It's one of those mysteries of the morning. Who knows what's been going on? Yes, girls. They've just come across from the Arathusa Simbombili boundary, which is interesting. Because it means one of them was on Djuma, and one of them's been wandering around here. Now, the last time I saw the Nkuhuma cubs, that was actually with Senzo. And Senzo and I were looking at them, and they were absolutely covered in blood, guts, and gore from the buffalo meal that they were consuming. They are looking far more pristine than they were then. They're actually looking utterly gorgeous, and their mange has cleared up almost completely. They are now looking like proper healthy little lion cubs. Here goes the smallest one, the youngest one. Oh, the affection there. Oh, or, you know, a little bit of a snarl from Mum, whichever way it works. I suppose I'd also snarl first thing in the morning if I got a headbutt straight to the nose. Now, there's a couple of big yawns happening as that cub disappears from the adults and from the cubs, which suggests that they may not be done yet with their morning movements. Let's just see which way they go. And another big yawn. Now, I'm afraid to say I do need to hop onto the game drive radio ever so quickly so that I can tell the other guides. It's the way that we communicate with each other across the reserve, and I need to call it in relatively quickly because otherwise there's a very good chance that these lions could cross and some of the guests won't get to see them. So do forgive me. You can watch these beautiful lions while I do that. Oh, never mind. I was going to try to, but unfortunately it seems as though there's lots to be said this morning. Hello, lovely girls. I cannot believe the difference in these cubs. They are looking so much healthier. And we've actually had the opportunity... Oh, some big teeth coming through there. We've actually had the opportunity to watch them grow up from when they were just tiny little bundles of fluff. I'll never fear, I'm not going anywhere, but I do need to have some chatting since the sighting is on a boundary, or do some chatting. Now, while I do that, luckily it's cat morning this morning, and Brent has Tingana to keep you entertained. Well, James is correct about one thing. Well, I'm sure James is correct about many things. Either way, I definitely don't want to eat a spider. What I do want to do this morning is enjoy this absolutely gorgeous, picturesque sighting. And James has mentioned that the grass has gone to seed. But it does make for some truly, absolutely gorgeous images of these golden lions walking through golden grass. It's almost as though the lions were meant for the colour scheme of this time of year. I did say that there's lots of yawning and paw licking happening, and it seems as though they are intent on moving further into Djuma, which is, of course, wonderful news for us. They haven't moved too far in yet. We've got one straggler here who's feeling a little bit lazy, isn't that keen on getting up. I'll tell you what, Mario, in answer to your question, because I was just thinking after the cubs had got up, I was obviously a bit slow off the mark. Mario wanted to know which is the male cub and is he a little bit bigger than the others. Let's wait and see if we get them all grouped back together, and then we'll actually have the opportunity to show you the cubs all gathered. And those of you who've got screenshots of when we first arrived, maybe you can share those and have a look and see where the male cub was sitting. Off the top of my head, I was busy thinking other things, so I didn't notice exactly where he was. But there is a noticeable size difference. And he's also getting quite a fluffy cheek. Fluffiness about the cheeks and about the top of the head. Come on, straggler. Up you get. No, don't eat the grass. Oh, big stretch. Nice to see them playful again. Here you go. Off you go to catch up. Can't believe how big they've got. Here we go. Sidling off into the grass. And one thing I've noticed is that they are quite empty-bellied. So the last time we saw them, they were gorging themselves on a buffalo. Now, it seems as though they could use a meal again. Although that does seem to happen more regularly. Oh, I suppose it makes total sense. They've got 6 growing cubs. So the lionesses are constantly working. I mean, they're not super thin, but they could use another snack. And that means no rest for weary mothers. They've got to keep hunting. It's going to get hot quickly this morning. And I think that's why the lionesses are still on the move in the way that they are. Or not. Or, could just go back to sleep. Fair enough. And welcome to Ali, who would like to know if the lions are aggressive if we get too close to them. No, not usually. Bear in mind that of all lions, a lioness with cubs is going to probably be the most dangerous. And the only time you're likely to get a growl from one of the lions is if we were to stumble upon them on foot and be a little bit close to them. And that's when or if you find yourself accidentally getting between a lioness and her cubs, which does occasionally happen by mistake and does result in some very upset lionesses. But otherwise, they're not ordinarily aggressive, no. And they're certainly not out to, in any way, attack a human being. Right, it seems as though James has achieved his goal. Let's go and have a look at the bird that he's found. Oh, we could stay with them for a little while longer, but I want to show you something, just in terms of how difficult it is to spot lions at the moment. Let's have a look over there. Over there is a pile of lion cubs and one adult lioness. And you can just, and only because she's sitting up, you can just see the tips of her ears. Oh, bless you, girl. And other than that, there's not much really to be seen. And you can imagine how terrifying it must be for animals at the moment that are hunted by things like lions. Bye. Just saying goodbye to some of the other guides. As it is. And a lion stalking through the long grass, making their way towards something like a buffalo. It'd be very difficult to actually see them coming, which is why animals' eyesight is so well geared to picking up on movement. Anything like that. So much for my idea of trying to see the cubs all lined up together. Because at the moment, this lioness's head... Oh, there was a cub sticking out behind her. Is pretty much all that we can see. Come on, ladies. Go towards the sun. And good morning to Jim. Speaking of our lion cubs, Jim, you want to know how much sleep lion cubs will get during a day. Generally speaking, with any young animal, they tend to sleep more than the adults. I would say that lions are almost the exception to that, but that's just because lions are champion sleepers, adult lions. They can sleep for up to 22 hours a day, and so can their cubs, but their cubs, particularly in the cooler hours, tend to be quite playful and up and moving about and expending slightly more energy than the adults. Even around kills, they tend to sort of sit around and feed for slightly longer, just because as the smallest member of the pride, they tend to be the ones that get the not as nice parts of the carcass, the not as nutritious. Look at that little face. It's basically hidden. It's almost invisible. Oh, okay. I don't know what that was about, but she just kicked him straight in the face. And they're gone. Lions have vanished. See how difficult it could have been. If we'd been a few minutes later, we probably would have found them, just because we would have seen their tracks where they walked across the road. But either way, it does make them very, very difficult to spot in these sort of conditions. It's my favorite time of year. Oh, she's up. It is my favorite time of year to be in the bush, but it is harder. What's got you in such a bad mood? Oh, she's in a foul mood. Obviously the cub did something to her to earn that kick to the face. Perhaps a little bit of nibbling on her tail, on her ears. Now, Aqua, you want to know if our cubs have outgrown their cute growling noises. They still growl. They make a tremendous racket when they are feeding off a carcass, growling furiously, but that's actually not so much cute as quite terrifying, that something so sweet and innocent looking can make such a terrifying sound. But they have pretty much stopped making that ow, ow, ow sound. What's she snarling at? I think the cubs are driving her mad. But yes, the really cute sounds that they used to make are pretty much a thing of the past. And now, it's all adult sounds from here on out. Roaring, growling, snarling. Although, we still get the beautiful sound of the females calling to the cubs, that contact call. Ooh. 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 It's a terrible impression. I'm just trying to work out where's going to be best for us before everybody else gets here. It's all right, little cubs. Oh, you've got skittish. It's okay. It's okay, little rascals. All right, we've got to make space for some other vehicles. So I'm just going to do some shuffling around. And from our lion cubs hidden in the grass, there's another cat that's very good at disappearing. Let's go and find out how Tingana's doing. Ooh, I wonder what it is that Herbert has found for you all. Well, good news is I have found a better position to view our lions from. And I was mistaken. When I first arrived, I didn't realize there were more adult lionesses hidden further into the bush. We've actually got 4 Nkuhuma lionesses by my last count. That's all I can find. Doesn't look as though all 5 are here. And just for new viewers, the Nkuhumas consist of, or the Nkuhuma Pride consists of 5 lionesses and 6 cubs. So 11 in total, but I think that we only have 10, which would make sense with the tracks that we had, not yesterday morning, but the morning before that, of a lioness moving with one of the males. So presumably either Amber Eyes or the youngest female is off mating somewhere with one of the Birmingham boys. But nice to see that we've got the rest of them gathered together. Still busy cleaning away the dew and the sand from their paws, making sure to keep those sharpened claws nice and tucked away in their sheaths. And just for a bit of background on the Nkuhumas as well, the name Nkuhuma is the local Xitsonga name, for a brown ivory tree, which is a very beautiful type of tree. And apparently, I don't know whether it was that they were found regularly under one particular tree, or if it's just that they regularly associated around a tree of that species. But either way, that is where they got their name from. And they've pretty much been the lion pride that we've spent the most time with. Marjorie, what a lovely question, because absolutely, that is basically what a lion pride is. The Marjorie's question is, well, is it possible for prides to be made up of several generations, grandmothers, mothers, daughters, and so on? Absolutely. Oh, the back of your neck, very itchy, girl. Imagine being able to scratch the back of neck with your foot. Be an odd experience indeed. I think, is this the oldest? No, it's not the oldest lioness. So the Nkuhumas, there is one elder lioness, and then the rest of the lionesses are much younger than she is, and quite a few of them, if not all of them, are her daughters. So lion pride, because of a female will come and reach sexual maturity at around about 2.5, 3, and she'll probably produce her first litter at around 4 years old. And a lioness can live up to, oh, there we go, big stretch. A lioness could live up to 13, 14, even a little bit older. So that means because females stay within their pride for their entire lives, that means that yes, absolutely, a pride could consist of a grandmother, her daughters, and her daughters' daughters. And that's what creates that beautiful bond between pride members. And you can see the reason she's actually got up, speaking of the bonds between them, is to go and give one of the other lionesses a little bit of a head rub, a greeting. That's the way that lionesses greet each other, or all lions greet each other. And actually, she's going to go and see what the other lioness is up to. Oh, no. Senzo, look what this lion's doing behind us. Oh, she just stopped. She's busy scratching and cleaning out her claw sheaths on the tree behind us. Now the two of them are getting up to greet each other. Watch the affection and the head rub. Or not. Or she could just be snubbed. Aren't they utterly gorgeous? With their gold lining. There we go. Oh, stood on Amber eyes. Hello, Amber. Don't look at me. It wasn't my fault you got trodden on. The one adult lioness with orange eyes, staring at us through the branches. Now, why are you looking at me like that? I had nothing to do with that. I did not tread on you. Now just an ear. I think there's something very special about the fact that within lion prides, the female cubs that they have will be there probably, barring something unforeseen, but they could be there for their entire lifespan. And it makes sense to have that kind of a system because, of course, the pride is geared towards what is good for the pride, not necessarily what is good for the individual, until, of course, it comes time for feeding, in which case it's every lion for themselves. Look at these little cubs curled up in a ball. That other lioness was basically lying on top of them. Now, of course, you would think that within a lion pride like that, if you've got a grandmother, it would kind of almost be like a matriarchal system. But Chris, none of these females is really the boss. Now, generally, there's a pattern where the older female will decide which way the pride gets up and moves, but that's really only a general rule. For the most part, there is no hierarchy within a lion pride. Everybody is pretty much on equal footing. Every lioness does an equal amount of work. I wonder sometimes, in my own mind, if they have their own roles set out in terms of which lion takes which hunting role. But I don't think that's the case, actually. I think it's more that they're just very good at coordinating. And it's very much circumstantial. It depends on where each lioness happens to be during that particular hunt. So there's no dominance. There's no particular hierarchy. At the dinner table, the strongest lioness will get the best possible position, or at least the one that's got in there first and is being the most fiercely defensive over her feeding position. So really, it's nothing like something like a hyena clan, for example. And then bear in mind, of course, that a male lion will always be dominant over the female, always stronger. Sometimes the females turn around and give them a bit of a smack, but even then they have to be careful in doing so, because male lions are just that much stronger than females. They are so, so much heavier. The nice thing about our set of cubs at the moment, although it's sad for the one lone male, but when they grow up, what it means is that our 5-strong Nkuhuma Pride will be supplemented by 5 additional cubs. So provided they all survive to adulthood, which is always something that you can't take for granted, but provided they all survive, we could have an Nkuhuma Pride in 2 years' time consisting of 10 adult lionesses, and who knows how many cubs. It's quite an exciting thought. Awesome. And looks like the eldest lioness with her chipped tooth. Look at that grimace. So that was what's known as a Flehmen grimace. And she's scent testing. She's going to do it again. Oh, there we go. She looks like she's snarling. She's not snarling. What she's doing is scent testing. She's going to do it again. The urine of one of the other females. And basically, or not, basically what she's doing is by pulling that face, she's opening up a passage to a vomeral nasal organ that sits base on her palate, essentially. And by making that face, the muscles open up that passage, and she can basically taste the smell of whatever she was sniffing there, probably the urine of another lioness. And all animals do it. So white rhino do it, antelope do it, lions, leopards, and it very much gives them that amazing snarling face that she showed us there a moment ago. But she isn't snarling. It's just a way of scent testing. The organ of Jacobson, reptiles also have it. It sits again on their palate, and that's why snakes flick their tongues out and then bring them back into their mouths. Now, before our beautiful lioness was Flehmen grimacing, we were talking a little bit about the social structure of the pride, and we can see the bonds between the lionesses and the cubs. These might not even be her cubs. They could be the cubs of one of the other females. That's how tight the bonds are, that the females will suckle the cubs of another lioness. However, I did mention that there was one male, and we've touched upon the fact that the Nkuhuma Pride will be supplemented by a number of females. But the one male, yes, David, one male will be kicked out when he reaches sexual maturity. And it'll be quite a tough time for him, because at this point, unless we get a fresh batch of cubs, that sounds like a fresh batch of muffins, like they've baked them. But if we get a fresh generation of cubs, he might have a coalition mate to join up with. But if not, he will be all on his own, just in the same way that the previous male from the Nkuhumas, the young Nkuhuma male, had to go off on his own and find his own way around. So around about 3, give or take a few months, it's very much circumstantial. Once that male lion has started reaching sexual maturity, his instincts will be to start mating with his sisters, his mother, his aunts. There's no rules barred in the lion world, and instinct is instinct. And generally, to prevent that, what will happen is that the dominant male lions in the area will actually kick him out. So they will push him away, and he'll go off in search of his own territory. It seems as though it's bath time on the reserve. Let's go and see whether or not a Tingana is participating as well. I'm still with our lions, but I don't think I'm going to be with our lions for too much longer. No matter where I've tried to go, our view is really particularly poor. This is probably the best I can do. There's sleeping lioness over there. And she's the only one at this point that is out in the open. The rest of them, it's odd. It's actually really peculiar, the way that the cubs have actually climbed into a thicket in order to sleep. And I mean really climbed into a really dense bush. The adults, the females, are a bit more out in the open, but even then it's almost impossible for us to see them. And it feels as though this has become a pattern with the Nkuhumas of late. unless we're sitting watching them feed off something like our buffalo carcass the other day, it really does seem as though they like to hide away far more than they used to. Sorry, hold on 1 second. I think Brent is trying to call me. No, he's not trying to call me. He's trying to call someone else. I don't know why that is. I don't know whether it's just a product of the cubs growing up a little bit, so that they don't play with each other as much as they used to, or if it's perhaps something that happened to them in Buffelshoek or Manuleti, where they disappeared off to for months at a time. I don't know why it is that our Nkuhumas are not quite, especially the cubs, they don't seem quite the same. But maybe it is just the fact that they're growing older. I'm not 100% convinced, though. I heard an interesting theory from Herbie. This is Herbie's theory as to why the Nkuhumas don't spend as much time on Djuma as they used to. He thinks that because of the white muscle disease and the deaths of the 2 cubs, and for those of you that missed it, essentially 2 of the Nkuhuma cubs didn't make it on a basis that they actually, during the drought, acquired a vitamin E and selenium deficiency, which caused a paralysis and weakening of the muscles, particularly around the back legs. And 2 of the cubs actually died of white muscle disease. And Herbie thinks, because there's no way that the lions could really understand that that disease was caused by a bad diet or a poor diet, or poor quality of food, actually, would probably be a better way of describing it. He thinks that the Nkuhumas might have made the assumption or associated that particular problem with the cubs with where they were at the time. Which I suppose in a way makes sense, because instinctively there might be situations where there might be a disease outbreak or something like that, perhaps anthrax, and instinctively lionesses will keep their cubs away from that. But that's Herbie's theory. Personally, I'm not so sure. I'm not convinced. I think it more has to do with the fact that the buffalo have all moved off Djuma. And they don't seem to be particularly keen on eating much else. Occasionally they eat the odd zebra or the odd waterbuck. But other than that, the Nkuhuma ladies not so keen on anything but buffalo. So I just think it's that. But you never know. It's an interesting theory. I thought I should share it with you nonetheless. How were they to know that what happened to the cubs was completely outside of their control? All right. This is about as enthralling as these lionesses are going to be this morning. I think it's time for us to leave, perhaps pop past Ribbon's hyena den and see if perhaps we're not too late to get a chance to see those gorgeous little hyena cubs and see whether or not they'll come out and have a sniff of the tires. I think that's what we shall do, because this is all these lionesses are going to do.